Hello again guys, and welcome back to another Big Al Devlin video here at the House of Devlin. This is a paganism video, one of our paganistic videos dedicated towards paganism, and this is a sort of a discussion video really, or what my personal ideas and understandings are now as they are starting to develop, as I begin to understand who I am, what I am, and how I've become what I am, so to speak. Because for those who don't know, who've never seen any of my previous pagan videos, within pagan society, the mass majority of society are just normal, everyday people. Okay, people who are dedicated to the old gods, yes. People who are very brave warriors, yes. You know, maidens and, you know, farmers and whatever, you know, all the modern professions as well, of course. We're just normal people, but there are members of pagan society such as myself and such as Celtic God, who's another YouTuber here on YouTube, who are different. You would probably call us, and I would be fine with being called it as well, because it is almost a perfectly descriptive term for what we are. Berserkers. Now, berserkers are a lot more different to perhaps what you would normally think. Berserkers are not frothing, raging madmen who are basically just a war clan, essentially, a group or war band, a grouping of men who, or an individual, if that's how you see it, who goes around and basically, when he fights in battle, just loses the goddamn plot and just kills everything in sight, friend and foe, and does it in such an aggressive manner. He has no defense, doesn't protect himself in any way whatsoever, but is, because he's so enraged and so, you know, focused in killing the enemies, often oblivious to his wounds, then the rage dies out and basically the adrenaline stops and he's like, oh shit, and drops down dead. That's not what a berserker is, although in some ways that describes partly how berserkers did work. They were warriors, but they were not mindless. Far from it. They were far more mindful than your average person. They were far more aware of the world, and they could see and they could understand aspects of this world that no normal man could. Now, as I say, I've described myself and another member on here on YouTube as berserkers, so to speak. I myself am not a berserker. I will say that clearly. I'm not your stereotypical, archetypical berserker. I'm not a berserker who is dedicated to Odin, for example. All berserkers were dedicated to Odin, when they died, they would go straight to the halls of Valhalla. I myself died 2 years ago and came back. I didn't stay dead, hence why I'm able to film this video. In that process of staying alive, I became what I am today, which is a berserker, but a berserker of Freya. Now, we don't know what the term for the berserkers that were dedicated to Freya were called. They would have been different to the berserkers to Odin. There would have been a lot of overlaps. There would have been a lot of similarities, and their mentality, the way they looked at the world, the way that their position in society would have been the same, which is very high up. You know, they were essentially their own power. They could decapitate a king and say that king is a bad king, and none of the other Viking warriors would touch that berserker, whether they're for Freya or for Odin. They would not touch him because they were seen as being men of, or women, although I only know of male examples. I'm sure there were women as well, but they were men or women of the gods. They represented directly the will of the gods, because what happens is they died, and that's everything. That's why I'm saying berserkers are different to what you think. But all berserkers were people who had a death experience. They had all died but refused to stay dead. Me 2 years ago, I died for roughly, or I was not of this world, let's say at the very least, for roughly 30 minutes. And I came back because I heard the screams of my girlfriend. And I left the heaven that I had ascended into. I went to Folkvangir, which is the heaven of Freya. And that's why I know that I am destined to go to Freya, and I am not a berserker. However, my good friend Celtic God, I believe, may be very well a berserker and will go to the halls of Valhalla and feast and drink there for all eternity until Ragnarok comes. But the words that it doesn't really matter what you call us. We're all the same thing. Me and Celtic God, we may be going to different gods when we die, but it doesn't matter. We are the same thing. We are essentially holy men within paganistic society. We are equivalent, I suppose, in Christianity of saints, I suppose. And that might sound very arrogant, especially as typically to be a saint, there are a few requirements. First of all, you have to perform, I think, 3 miracles, and you also tend to have to be dead. We fulfill the dead part. Whether we've performed 3 miracles or not is another matter. But what I'm trying to say is we have the same status as that amongst paganistic society, traditionally speaking. And that's why I said a berserker could go up and decapitate a king, because often they were bodyguards of kings because they could be trusted, because they were very trustworthy individuals. They were very loyal, and they had a cause. Because when they return to Earth, people like me and Celtic God, we come back with a purpose. We don't know what that purpose is, but we know that the gods have sent us or allowed us to come back to Midgard within our bodies to achieve something, whatever it might be, or achieve a number of different things. We have a goal, we have a mission, and we can only ever die once that mission has been completed, or once that knowledge has been acquired, or once our skills are to the level where they should be, for example. Whatever reason we are here on this earth, we cannot die, in theory. Okay, now, I don't want to put that to practice and go on, stick me in the gut, but I imagine I would survive such a wound. Okay, it would still hurt and it would still damage my body. I'm not saying that we're immune to damage or immune to pain or anything like that, although we are very much immune to pain. That's one of the consequences, and this really is what the video is about. There are certain consequences that I have only just learning about, to being what we are. I don't know what we are as such. Giving a name to it is very hard, and so I'm just going to use the term berserker for simplicity. I don't want to get into a discussion that, if you're Freya, you're dedicated to Freya, then are you a Vanatru? There's such a term as a Vanatru, or are you a Volve, or are you a shaman, or and obviously in the Celtic side of things, Celtic God would describe himself as a druid, even though he's probably a berserker or a druid berserker. It gets complicated, and Celtic God agrees with me on this. We don't give a shit what you fucking call us. We are what we are. Okay, and so I honestly don't give a shit what my name is, what I am now. I'm a man, but I'm a man plus one. I'm a man with something a little else. I'm something different, and there are certain things that come with that status. Now, obviously, yes, that status within society, you in the old world could bypass basically any law whatsoever, because you were seen as a direct representation of the gods. That's why I said we're almost like saints, like Christian saints. They were, very holy people, and who would argue with a saint if they were a Christian? They wouldn't, would they? Okay, and it was the same sort of relationship that people like myself and the old pagan people had. Now, if I went and decapitated, a king or prime minister of any nation in this world, I would be arrested and shot probably, or hung, drawn and quartered. We don't have that influence in society now. That's a cultural thing. We understand that. That's not a power. That's just a cultural side effect that we no longer have. Okay, we don't have that status anymore. Amongst pagans, yes, perhaps we would. Pagans would respect and certainly show us the respect that we deserve if they're true pagan, because they know that we are what essentially you could describe as simply as the hammer of the gods. That's a good way of describing us, the hammers of the gods. In fact, actually, I'm going to use that word instead of berserker, because berserker was a very specific type of what we were. And so the hammers of the gods, me, other people who have had death-like experiences and been allowed to return to Earth by the God who chose them. We do have certain physical similarities between us, and in the old days we would have then joined a group of other people who were suffering from the same side effects. So initially it is a suffering. Initially, it's almost a curse. When you first come back, your mind, I wouldn't say your mind necessarily, but your consciousness is aware that you died. You may not be aware that you died. You may not have been told you died, but you know inside your body you died. You died. I found it, and I mean, I found a year later that I'd suffered as badly as I did. It took me a year to find that out, and it was just by pure chance that I had suffered as much as I did with my heart and stuff. And when I found out, it's just like, oh fucking hell, it all makes sense now. That's why I feel dead. I did die, but when you go through those kind of death-like experiences, as I say, I'm struggling to get to the point here, but I will get there, guys, so bear with me, because I've got some interesting insights that I'd like to discuss with you and hear your opinion on. We come back, and I've got videos describing what the waking dream is, experiences, but essentially you believe you're in an afterlife when really you're actually here in the real world. You believe, well, I died, and so this must be the afterlife, and you start questioning the reality around you, and it can make you go nuts, to the point where you can no longer function, and that's it. You're gone. You no longer can function, and that's it. You become outside of society. You become off the Uttengard. Society can't handle you anymore. You're too unpredictable. You're too just out of it. There's nothing anyone can do for you anymore, or you commit suicide. However, if you can get past that, if you are lucky enough to have a mentor or tutor, as I have had, who can tell you, no, this is the truth. You are going through this experience. All you need to do is focus and know that it's just an experience. You are of this earth. You need to stop questioning reality. And over time, that I believe I will always feel not of this world. I never feel of this world. I feel dead. I feel that this is the world of the dead, and I know it's not. I know it's reality, but it doesn't. I can't shake that feeling. But that feeling has numbed up a bit. When you stop questioning it and simply accept that, no, I died, and things feel different now to how they used to, but they feel different now to how they used to when I was fully living. They are most certainly different now, but I am what I am, and I am living. I'm not dead. This is not the afterlife. Okay, and once you can accept that this is not the afterlife, then the waking dream, as I say, it begins to numb up. you begin to shake it off, and you begin to be able to focus better. Now, there are other things alongside the waking dream that you get, and it all comes, I believe, from almost a depersonalization or a desensitization to yourself. Personality, first of all, changes. You become more abrupt, you become more volatile, you become more to the point. You basically don't suffer idiots, fools, and arseholes, basically. You don't suffer people wasting your time. And if people are wasting your time or threatening you or threatening someone that you deem worthy of protection, such as someone you love, for example, or a friend, or just someone who should not be threatened, then your life, you will potentially risk your life to protect that person, okay, against the aggressor, okay. Certainly that's how it is with me, but the volatility and the emotional instability, so to speak, that is where you have complete numbness because you are desensitized to your own body. You are immune to pain, well, virtually immune to pain. And I can feel my hand touching my hand, but the only way I can describe it is it's not my hand that's being touched. It doesn't feel like my hand being touched. It feels like someone else's. And so if I was to get a knife and draw it across my hand there, yes, I would feel pain. But would I react? And the pain would go up into my head, and I might not feel a huge amount of that pain. Wow. This is a 20-mile-per-hour zone, and that guy's just come through here at like 80. Fucking hell. Stupid twats. I'm sorry, guys. I have a personal hatred for people who speed like that, because obviously it's how I got killed with people driving poorly. But anyway, and it sets off my amnesia. I'm starting to think about other things. But basically, alongside this desensitization, you become desensitized to your own emotions and your own body. And as I say, if you did that, I would feel pain, but the pain is completely locked off to my consciousness, so to speak. So yes, my body would feel the pain, but there's no psychological reaction to it. Quite often they'll get hurt and they won't scream, they won't really react, they'll go, and then they'll look and they'll sit there and go, ah, that's when they'll start screaming, oh man, my hand. But until they see it, generally speaking, most people will not react to that pain because there's not that emotional response. There's not that psychological response to the pain, which is fairly unique to humans because it's part of our upper cortex. We have an emotional connection to pain that can either amplify the pain or desensitize it, depending on how well tuned you are to it. And basically, because I seem to have lost that connection. However it may be, maybe it's brain damage, maybe that part of my brain is dead from the blow to the head that I took, or maybe it's just a consequence of going through what I went through, because it is, of course, typically a symptom of every single person who has undergone the change, so to speak, who is a hammer of the gods. Okay, so first of all, you have an immunity to pain. Great advantage. Okay. That's a great advantage for someone who is destined to be a warrior, okay, of his people. Secondly, though, your emotions are also cut off. You're cut off from your emotions in the same way that you're cut off from your pain. You feel them, yes. And the only emotion that I feel is guilt. I feel guilt in exactly the same way, almost, that I felt guilt before the crash. It's a little bit more numbed up, but I do feel it, and I feel it quite severely, and wrongfully as well. I feel guilt over minor things. I feel guilt over the fact that my girlfriend was crippled in the crash, and I blame myself, even though I'm not to blame. I did everything I could to stop us getting hit. I was stationary at the time and I was hit from behind in a long line of traffic. I saw the truck coming from behind in my rear mirror, tried to get out of the way, and we were hit. And there was nothing. I was lauded as a hero. The police said meant you are a hero. I was, exonerated completely by the Queen's Counsel, the QC representative in Crown Court, saying that I did nothing wrong, and also the same with the judge in the Crown Court. So I should have no guilt, because both the legal system and also that the police, which I know is part of the legal system, but it's a sort of separate part to the court, they've said I'm a hero, and they've said you've done absolutely nothing wrong whatsoever. Despite that, I still feel guilty over my girlfriend's injury. I feel like I'm the one responsible, but it's the person who hit us that's responsible. So that's one of those weird things. I still feel guilt. And I feel guilt is, for example, if I try to lie. I can't lie anymore. And so this is where I'm going to get to now. I'm going to get to the sort of common symptoms that people like myself, the hammers of the gods, have, and my theory on why we are unable, or why we have these abilities or unable to do certain things. We have an immunity, or a very, very high threshold of pain, okay? But it's essentially an immunity to pain. We feel it, but we don't react to it, okay? We have strange emotions, okay? We're desensitized from our emotions, but our emotions are also incredibly volatile. When they come out big, okay? And they're amplified to a much greater degree. And that's how, all of a sudden you can go from being just a nice normal guy, and then someone sparks you off and bang, all of a sudden within a split second you become this ferocious beast. And that's just a consequence of it. You're abrupt, you're to the point, and you don't suffer idiots, as I say. Verbally, you're confident enough to command people. No, you cannot do that. Yes, you can do that. And there is no thought to the process that's an individual with a free will and free choice. You lose that. And so it's a reference to, again, that decapitation of a king. If they're doing something wrong, you have no qualms, no issues, and you have no filter. You just tell them, you're doing wrong, stop it, okay? And you will intervene if need to be. Okay, so if you see someone doing what you think's wrong, you intervene, and there's nothing you can really do about it. And the other thing is, of course, is that you can't lie. It's a painful experience. I cannot lie. If you held this bottle here, this bottle is blue. I cannot say that this bottle is in another colour. It's a bit like liar, liar. It's like that. I cannot do it. I can't write it down. I can't verbally say it. I cannot tell you anything other than the truth. That bottle is blue with a bit of yellow at the top, and it's got a black top. I have to be very specific. It's got writing on it. And see, I'm setting myself off. I have to tell not only the truth, but the full truth, and the detailed truth as well. And a part of that, I believe, is proof that we are dead. In some respects, or have death within us. Part of us is dead, because in Nordic and Celtic mythology, well, I don't know about Celtic belief systems, but in the Nordic mythology and Nordic belief systems, the dead can't lie. They have to tell the truth. Now, they can try and remain silent, but obviously, magic can be used to force the dead to speak. But the dead have to tell the truth. The dead cannot lie. And so there must be some part of us that is dead that forces us then to tell the truth. In addition to this, our desensitization to our emotions, but certainly our physical reactions as well. The fact that we become stronger because we're not worried about injuring ourselves. The fact that we I in the gym, I was strong anyway, but I've become a lot stronger to some degree. I'm able to lift the same weights that I was able to lift before, but for a lot more times than just a few reps. I don't get tired physically as easily as I used to. And I believe that part of this is really what we are, because what inspired me towards this thought process was the fact that my girlfriend's house seems to be haunted at the moment. There's like a disembodied spirit. That's nothing new within Nordic or paganistic society. Spirits do exist. You can commune with them, and you can get rid of them as well. But that sort of that spiritual side of things, I was thinking, that is a disembodied spirit, but I'm an embodied spirit, not to the same point as a human, as a fully living person, but my body was dead for a certain period of time, and my spirit came back and took possession of my body. And that's what I believe. I believe that the hammers of the gods, people like myself, are people or bodies that are simply possessed with the original spirit of the individual that lived within that body. My consciousness has possessed my own body, if that makes sense. And there's a difference. My consciousness does not reside within my body, it possesses my body. And so it is disconnected. It's like controlling a robot. I'm now like a robot almost. My body is just a function. Because the gods allowed me to return. Freya allowed me to return to this earth for whatever function, whatever purpose. Men don't follow dead people. Men don't follow ghosts. They run away from them. They have to follow a material being, and one of their own kind, a human being, another man or woman, okay? And that is why I believe we possess our own forms, and our forms are brought back to life, essentially. We possess our forms so that people can interact with us and we can interact with them, but there is still like that disembodiment. You can't resurrect the dead. The dead cannot be resurrected, but you can possess the dead in theory. And so my theory is this, and I would love to hear what other people think. I may be wrong. This is just me thinking out loud. That the hammers of the gods, the bezerkers, the shamans, the druids, whatever, we are simply individuals who have died, and our spirits have come back, and instead of becoming disembodied and separated from the material world, have become a part of that, found a way of getting around being part of the material world as a ghost or spirit, but have become by possessing their own bodies before their bodies have started to rot too much and stuff like that. I was only potentially dead for 30 minutes. That's long enough to do damage, but it doesn't matter when there's a possession. If things aren't going quite right with my brain and stuff because of a lack of oxygen, it doesn't really matter so much. The possession will take control, and we've all seen it. Anyway, that's what I believe, or I'm beginning to believe. My insights is that we are simply spirits that have, or consciousnesses that have repossessed their own bodies but do not reside fully within their body as a result. We're like a temporary resident, and that's why we don't have fate, because we're already dead. We were fated to die on the day that we died, and fate is fate. Yeah, I was fated to die on that day the crash happened. I think it was the 13th of November 2016. I was fated to die on that day. And I did. I died. And I'm still dead, in theory. But I'm here because I've repossessed my body. And that is how you get around fate. That's how the spirits and the gods get around fate. The only other way is to reverse it through Seder magic and stuff. But that is the easiest way. It's just you let the spirit possess the body. They're dead, but they're living at the same time. And as Celtic God described to me, when you're in the waking dream, when you are what I am now, when you're a hammer of the god, you go from completely living to mostly dead, but only partly alive. A little bit of you is still left alive. Okay, and then you go then to mostly alive, but partly dead. And that's exactly how I understand it now. That partly dead bit is actually because you are dead, in theory. Your body's living, your spirit is living, but there's and they're connected, but they're not connected in the same way that they used to be. Your spirit, your soul, your consciousness, whatever you want to describe it, does not live in your body anymore. It possesses your body. It's a foreign spirit in essence. And that is why I believe the spirit, rather than the mind, is the one that's doing the controlling. It's why you're immune to pain. It's why you can't lie. It's why, because I know I'm being hurt, but it doesn't feel like my body, because in theory I'm not inside of my own body, so I'm not bothered. There's no emotional connection there. Emotions must come, are just chemical reactions that occur in the brain. Okay, we know that because we can affect them with drugs. Like with depression, you can give antidepressants and remove the depression, and other things like this. You can use drugs to affect the mood. You can give ecstasy, for example, and make someone very, very, very happy for a very short period of time. It's illegal, but you could do it. And so the mood of someone can be changed with chemicals, which shows that emotions are physical. And if you are disconnected from your physical aspect of yourself, you're not fully connected with it, then obviously, yes, you can interact with it, but it's like a sort of, there's a delay or there's a relay sort of process going on that is not allowing you to fully connect with those emotions. But when you connect, oh man, you connect hard, because all of a sudden it's just like your tolerance has dropped, and that's when the emotions can just explode. That's my understanding and explanation of what I have become and what other people like myself have become. Maybe right, maybe wrong, but it's something at least to consider, and I'd love to hear your thoughts. Thank you very much for listening, guys. I'll see you soon.